Hello and welcome to the Drawing Room Experts. This is Zaib, coming to you from out of town, actually, as you can tell from my background and slightly change in the location as well. Um, Apparently I cannot get time to do these at home anymore for various reasons. So while I'm traveling for work, I think this is I realize that I have some time on my hands, especially after 6 p.m. when you're done with work and you come back to your hotel. There's not much to do, especially in a place like Salt Lake City. So, with that being said, I would like to first of all start with the fact that please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, subscribe to us on Google Podcast, Amazon Music, wherever you're listening. Leave us a rating, share the show, so that other people may discover. I know there's nothing much to sell because I'm not very consistent with these, but trust me, I mean the work that I do is I think slightly better than than um than I've than what is out there, to be honest, and not a lot is out there compared that I can compare with. Um, अगर अपनी उठानी उठाऊगिरी अगर हो गई है, तो I guess I should move on. Um, I wanted to talk about this for a while, and मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा था कि इसको मैं solo करूँ या should I do this with a. Here's another problem. That's another issue. That when I feel like I have a good topic, I almost immediately think of a person that I need to speak on this with, and that just results in me delaying these discussions forever because schedules don't match, and then when they match, I'm not into it perhaps, and that causes a lot of these back and forth, I feel. So I think I have to tell myself that I need to start doing these, and not really care too much about the video and stuff, because I usually keep I record off my phone and then do edit the video and stuff afterwards. But here I am using my laptop camera, and a mic that I had retired. I used to use these previously, but retired, and I think that causes a lot of these delays, to be honest. And to compound that, my laziness. But with that being said, um, I wanted to talk about political spectrums and the spectrum of media reporting that exists generally out there, and that got me thinking about, obviously, with context to Pakistan. It's a very hostile political environment there right now as we speak. Um, it's a very frustrating political environment there. And it does get to me emotionally because I feel like sometimes I lose a little bit of rationality and think with emotions, which is not something that I am proud of. But having said that, I think it's important to just dissect the political climate in Pakistan with the labels that we use here in the West, all over the political spectrum, and the most common of them and the most simplest of them are the right, the left, and the center, or also referred to as the moderates. Um, I honestly don't understand the word moderates because it means that it means that you I don't know, maybe I understand it, but it just feels like there's a lot of neutrality about it. I'm not a huge fan of neutrality, and I'm done a podcast on that, I think, called Cult of Neutrality. I don't know what episode it was, but I'm sure if you're listening to me on one of the audio platforms, and you can find that episode. Um but yeah, moderates kind of sound to me very, very, middle of the ground, and neutral, cultish kind of behavior, which I also don't necessarily approve of. But anyway, but these are the three labels that people usually put or put political parties and media and opinions under. Um, and um, I was thinking, how do these buckets and these different categorizations apply to what I see in Pakistan, especially in the media realm, or especially in the political climate. And um, I was disappointed to discover that not much can be really categorized as such. With ease, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of complexities, and it is wouldn't expect anything less from how things are in Pakistan. But what it really results in, because of the complexity, what ends up happening is naive people, stupid people, and sometimes even um, misleading people use those tags for their own benefits to sometimes bring the other party down, or just look at their own opinions in a much higher light, which I don't understand that. And so let's just go through those one by one, and I want to really dissect this as I talk through this. So the right in here in the West is referred to a party or a political idea that is conservative in nature, that is um and it goes with a lot of not just political ideologies, but a lot of economic thought process as well. So a lot of the times here in the U.S., these political ideologies are closely knit together with economic outlook or economic ideologies. So when you say when you say that someone's on the right, you automatically think they're fiscally conservative, they're socially conservative, they um are someone off that uses religious barometers to get to reach ethical or moral conclusions, and someone who doesn't believe uh, in too much of a role of the state. Here in the West, that's what the definition is. They, like, for example, the Republican parties are members of the Republican Party, and what's that other guy, Rand Paul, की क्या party है वो? Um, the name's skipping me, but somewhere along those lines, the likes of Rand Paul and the likes of um, uh, Ryan Paul, these people who represent the right in this country. They believe in small governments. They believe in zero to none government involvement in the matters of public affair. They believe in the utmost idea of freedom. That's why you get to hear a lot of these hyperboles around freedom, and the typical picture that you get in your mind is someone from the Midwest, screaming freedom with their AK-47 in their hands. Um, but that's what the idea is. But there's a proper political and economic ideology behind this tag here in the West. The other, obviously, the polar opposite, so to speak, is the left party, uh, left side of the aisle. So generally, when I say left, people assume the someone who is uh, socially liberal, someone who is uh, you know religiously or in the religion realm, secular. Although to say religiously secular is almost like an oxymoron, but you know what I mean. So like an example of their economic policy would be healthcare, for Medicare for all, or universal health care, or um, um, so that kind of like translates into more government involvement in the day-to-day lives. They feel like that the that the hand at the top kind of like plays a very important role in making sure that there's equal opportunity for everybody in the country. So, and the centrist obviously believes in certain ideas of the left and certain ideas of the right. So, um, um, it's kind of a mixed bag. I feel like in Pakistan, when I say what is a right wing party, what is the party that is considered to be conservative, a lot of names comes to mind, most notably PMLN, most notably JI, Jamaat Islami, JUIF, and now also PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. When we say parties on the left, a lot of names come to mind. Including People's Party, including MQM, including ANP, perhaps to a certain degree, uh, um, and some of the other like underlying, very very smaller, um, almost like communist, almost communist type party, the socialist parties in Pakistan, but they also obviously don't have a lot of political capital. But the interesting thing about this is, while was able to give you examples of how a party on the right and a party on the left operate here in the U.S., because there's a lot of consistencies around, um, and in their ideology as a whole, and their actions that justify, or that represents the ideology. For example, if I say a party on the left, you're gonna easily be able to find people like Bernie Sanders, people like the president of the United States, Barack Obama. These people will be aligned in most issues, like universal health care, or higher minimum wage, or I mean, maybe Bernie more than others, but generally, those are the arguments that you're going to hear from the left, and very very consistently. Now, there's another argument about whether Bernie Sanders actually left, or is a different political bucket, what they refer to here as progressives. But just for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna keep him on the left. Similarly, on the right, you're gonna hear a lot of like small government arguments, less regulations. That kind of like translates to less government involvement. Um, you know, um, um, uh, a lot of religious ideology that comes into play when it comes when you talk about how they legislate, how they think about moral or ethical dilemmas. Um, it's easy to understand and easy to point out and easy to bucket people over here. And in Pakistan it's ridiculously difficult. So I mean, let me start with the reason why I'm making this podcast and this assessment is how people on the left in Pakistan, who are quote unquote enlightened, who are quote unquote who are educated, who should know better, who um generally you would normal people would agree with on things like supporting religious minority, or standing up to elitism, or stuff like that, social justice and all of that stuff. You tend to agree with those stances from the left. But I think the problem arises is when the left kind of very simplistically, very almost you know um, to a greater level of stupidity, I think, more than simplicity, tries and buckets Pakistani political parties, and then tries to align with the party that they feel like is the one that they should align with. For example, a lot of people on the left, or a lot of people that consider themselves liberal, or secular, like to align themselves with the likes of People's Party. Um, although there's an argument that can be made, but why not MQM, because MQM does have similar credentials in terms of how what they believe in, what the government setup should be, or how they believe in the middle class more than People's Party. But because it is a genuine, whether you like it or not, it's a genuine representation of the classic middle middle income people, or um, uh, someone who's not really that um, captured in some of the other parties. One might argue that okay, if they are considered to be left, then why doesn't the left kind of align with them as well? But there's reasons behind that. I feel like I believe there are more racist reasons than others, and I'll probably get some time down the line to in another podcast perhaps speak about that. Um, but yeah, so then as I was saying, then people kind of like align with the likes of People's Party, but and then they throw shades on the parties on the right, and they kind of like bucket them together, like plmn and Jamaat Islami, um, and PTI. Um, and like I said, it's ridiculously stupid because if I were to look back in the last 50 years or last 30 years, 40 years, um, what has caused the biggest harm in the cultural fabric of Pakistan post 70s? Um, and it has to be the involvement of a certain type of political Islam or a religious fundamentalism that not truly fundamentalism, because if it was, then my opinion, would be better. But it is not fundamentalism. It is opportunism. It is um, um, hypocrisy of a fucking highest level. Leaving the door open for people of that nature to be involved in public service, I think that I feel like has been the biggest disservice done to Pakistani society as a whole. And the man who left the door open, in my opinion, for that to happen, for that to take place, was Zulfiqar Ali Bhutto. Um, and how, you may ask, and I mean, it's a pretty straightforward answer, to be honest. I mean, him modifying the constitution to include the loudest condemnation of a um, a sect or religious ideology that exists within Muslims called the Ahmadis or the Qadianis, and have their condemnation become part of your syllabi and as part of your national declaration, because it's part of the contract that binds the government and the people. I mean, it's ridiculously weird that a contract that binds the public and the people, public and the rulers, being the constitution, would have such a clause that you would need to dissociate or denounce a creed or caste or a religious minority for you to be able to acknowledge that social contract. Um, but I think because of that, the door open towards the likes of Ziaul Haq coming in, and then he further elaborated on that and further double clicked on that. So the idea is that the biggest issue that you would feel like the left would have with Pakistan and the society in Pakistan would be religious fundamentalism, religious extremism, but they don't understand the seeds of that were sown during the time of what they consider the most liberal party in Pakistan. Similarly, I don't remember the most liberal party in Pakistan, People's Party, aligning with a lot of middle class initiatives, aligning with bringing people up from away from poverty. I mean, one might argue that the BISP plan was probably an indication that they want to take people out of poverty, but we all know how that went and how much corruption that was within that program, and if it really had an impact of bringing people out of poverty, or just empowering poverty, or just enabling poverty, if that's possible. So um, there's there's not a lot of credentials when you start looking towards them from a pure left and from a pure, left side of the aisle perspective. But yet again, you find the supposedly educated, the supposedly well-known and well-meaning people siding with the likes of the Zardaris and the Bhuttos of this world, because they feel like they are obliged to align with such a party because they are on the left. Um, Similarly, I think um, on the right, for example, classically you would assume that people on the right will be small government, and um, less of public welfare. But you see a lot of public welfare kind of thought. I mean, the whole idea of this Riyasat-e-Madina, or the state of Medina, that Imran Khan uh, endlessly pushes forward, is a very socialist agenda, and that is aligned with um, a lot of ideas on the left. But then people like to bucket the party on the right because they do have a lot of religious undertones, and Imran Khan cannot stop even if his life depended on him to do those to have those tones as part of his politics. Um, and to be honest, there's I mean, even on the left or the right, I mean, regardless, there's a very um there's a lack of a lot of economic identity. I mean, I feel like in all the parties, and even social identity. Is the People's Party considered socially liberal? Yes, they're considered socially liberal, but um, do they not align with the rightest of the right of this world? They are, for right now, they're aligning with PMLN. It doesn't get any more righter than that. I mean, it does, but I mean, on the grand stage, it doesn't. Um, so would that be considered left? No. Um, how about their economic policies? Do you see a lot of social agendas, or socialist agendas, or social democratic agendas when they speak? I mean, you may see them as part of their manifestos, but who the fuck cares about that when you don't see that in action? Um, um, I mean, the whole 18th Amendment, to be honest, is not a huge reflection on a central power. It is much more reflection of ensuring that there's power distributed amongst different. It's a decentralization of power argument, which is not very social democratic, because um, it doesn't allow the father, which is the state, to really have a say in how the children are doing. So I don't consider that to be a very democratic, socially democratic ideal as well. Similarly, on the right, I mean, you see that um, they 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 here in the U.S. they like to be they like to have uh, small governments, but on the right, people in Pakistan like to have bigger governments. I mean, the cabinets that both Imran Khan and the BMNN governments have picked have been nothing short of reflection of just what I just said. So I think the the demarcation between these two ideals is very vague and very blurred in Pakistan. And which is why I find really ridiculous that people on the left and on the right who genuinely, you know, uh, adhere to those ideals align with any of those parties, because none of these parties are consistently reflective of what we consider be a left or a right agenda. Um, Similarly, I think on the media front, um, that is missing, because in here in the US, you would say, there's Fox News, there's MSNBC, there's CNN. You get you understand what kind of ideas you would see floating out of these mediums. But In Pakistan, again, it's again in a hodgepodge situation. Um it's all over the place because there's no, again, like I said, demarcation in the media as well. I mean, if the purpose of the media in the previous government was um empowerment of media to ensure that media gets to report whatever they want to report, there's freedom in the press, but then that evaporates as soon as someone that they disagree with is facing such a conundrum. So it means the ideals is definitely not the reason why they were standing up for them. They were just standing up for it, but because it suited them. So it's a less than ideal situation. Um, Similarly, I think on other fronts, like government fronts and or social ideal fronts. For example, if the idea of the Constitution is that it's a public contract between the government and the citizens, then I'm sure having a right to vote or being able to vote whenever they want, or at least how the Constitution describes, or when the Constitution describes, should be rule number fucking one. Um, but because it doesn't suit their agenda and doesn't suit what their feelings are, um, that gets thrown in the background, back burner. So again, it's lack of ideals, it's lack of you know, clear principles. So it's very difficult to argue with such a person. It's just difficult to really sit down with people with political opinions in Pakistan, um, and especially analysts, because they're just it's confusing to me when I try and engage with them because they're all over the place as far as their logic, and that they're all over the place as far as um their principles are concerned. Because on one hand, you want to stand up for the supremacy of the Constitution, but then you know it just it's ridiculous. So people people analyzing Pakistani politics, without acknowledging that it is extremely complicated. It is extremely um, unusual. And then because there's a lack of principle on both sides of the aisle, it is all about winning the argument. It's about winning the next TV show. It's about winning the next front page headline. It's about winning the next trending topic on Twitter. That's what it is. It's very short term. It's very, um, you know, would they say you may have won the battle, but the war is not over yet? It's about winning the battle for them. So, it's the reverse ideology, but they don't care about the war. They don't care about the the long game. They just want to win the next day. They just want to feel good the next day, and the following day we'll see what happens. So it's difficult, right? It's difficult to understand where these ideals, how these ideals are represented in the spectrum of Pakistan society, um, it- and I feel like that's probably one of the reasons why we are where we are, because it's just you can't you can't argue with someone who you don't know what their principles are, because they just move the goalpost um anytime they feel like they're gonna lose an argument. So it's weird. Anyway, that's pretty much it, I guess. My rant for tonight. I'll try to record more. I think this was nice. I think this setting is okay over here in this hotel. Might record a couple more, depending on my laziness. I mean, I'm surrounded with, a couple beds, so what do you expect? Um, anyway, don't forget to subscribe, follow us on various audio platforms, like the video, whatever. I mean, I don't know how to do these things, but I mean, I'm just gonna say it because it means something, I guess, on the internet. And I will be back with another one soon. Thank you guys. Cheers.